Great. So let's continue the game from the previous section. Now, with the steps in the activity-based costing, these are the 6 steps. So in short, the first step, just identify the major activity. So make it major. Step 2, the cost driver. Step 3, the cost pool. Step 4, the overhead absorption rate. So that is the cost driver rate. Step 5 is the total overhead for each product. Here is the overhead cost per unit. That is it. So these are the steps that we have to go through. Good. Now use a diagram to explain this further for you. So I'll take each of the steps and put it in a diagram form. Yes. Now let's assume that we want to design a cost system for any organization at all of our choice. Let's select any organization. Any organization. GASIN, Ghana Cement. We are designing a cost system for them. And we've selected activity base. Formerly, let us know they were using the absorption. So now we said they should use ABC. And they say, oh, thank God. That's good news. So we should tell them how they should go about the ABC. So first, we told them to group all their overheads into reference, like those that relate to each other. So they should group them and identify the major activity. So they should group all the overheads into what activity. So first, if I take, let's assume that this is a gas. So they have a lot of activity. So they should group them to activity number 1. Heading, like this. Okay. Let's assume this is machine running cost. So machine running cost. That's overhead. This one can be assemble cost. In fact, you can have many. So I'll just use this. All the overhead, there are about thousands, billions of overhead that they incurred at Gas in Ghana Cement. But we've selected or grouped them into major activity. We also have other. Some of them you cannot group them. You can't find any activity and put it. So that's the step 1, right? So you're done with the first step. So we told them that kindly group all your overhead costs. All the costs incurred at the factory, which are indirect, don't worry, group them. Classify them into major activity. Good. Then we say step 2, what is there? Identify or determine what? The cost driver. Here, determine the cost driver. So if I have an activity and I call it machine running cost, what will be the cost driver? Cost driver simple means what will result the cost, what will give rise to the cost, something that will let us incur more machine running cost. So machine running cost, probably the appropriate cost driver will be what? So the driver will be the machine hours, right? So it will be machine hour. So machine hour will be the appropriate cost driver because the more we use the machine, the more we incur the running cost or the more repair costs we do. Then step 3 says that we should calculate what? The cost pool. Cost pool means, in fact, this is a major. This is a major activity. Major. We have a lot of activities, individual ones coming together to form the major. So if you take machine running cost, for instance, I can have what? Repairs, they form under. I can have what? Fuel for the machine. I can have what? Maintenance. I can have what? Tools. I can have what? Components. I can have what? Spare parts. the same as the component. Good. So that is it. So let's assume that here repairs is 100 Ghana, component is 200, maintenance is 300, fuel is 500. So what's the total? So that'll be 1,100, right? Good. So that's the cost pool, 1,100. So tell Gassim that after they have identified the measure, they should sum up all the individual costs in that activity. So activity by activity, all the activity they've identified, we do the same thing for them. All the activity, the same thing for them. All the activity, the same thing for them. So that's the step what? Step 3, the cost pool. Okay, so let's go to step 4. Then at step 4, we say determine the cost driver rate. Let's assume that this period, this particular month, we ask them that the first month they should tell us the number of hours that they will use the machine. Oh, they said that for them, they use the machine for just 500 hours. So they use it for 500 hours. It's okay, that's fine. Then if you are going to use for 500 hours, then what will be the cost per hour? Overhead cost per hour. And that's the term that we call it cost driver rate. So the cost driver rate is nothing but the cost pool. So total cost divided by the cost driver. The cost driver. So which is equal to 1,100 divided by 500 machine hours. Whatever answer you get, that is the cost driver rate. And that's the step 4. Good. And then step 5, you have to calculate what the overhead absorption rate or absorption cost for each of the products, the total. That's in probably they produce, let's say, 3 grade of cement, 35, 32, 37, and then the hard one. So if they produce 3 grades, then that means we have to now calculate overhead cost. This figure given to us is as a result of all the 3 grades. It's not for only one. So we have to now absorb it based on the number of hours used. So basically, that is the steps, and these are the procedure. If your examiner asks you to discuss the procedure or the steps that a company should embark on to implement activity-based costing system, most often your question will be like this: oh, the company was using absorption costing, and now they went to the accountant. The management accountant went to a conference and heard of the good news about activity-based costing, so they want to implement it. So give them the steps. And there's some challenges about the activity-based costing. You can see that it's not easy, right? Very complex. It needs time. You have to now group all the activity. Some of them, they don't have counterparts. Some of the activity you're on its own. You can't group them. Like this one, I have other. So it's very difficult to do the grouping. It requires experts. So these are the challenge that we have with it. Time consuming. Aside that, the good news is that it absorbs overheads on a fairer basis. So fair basis of apportion overhead. Now we are done. Let's go straight and back this with calculation. I'll start with a very simple illustration for you to grab the concept. Right after the concept, I'll now introduce you to complex questions. So the first illustration is for the understanding. And from there, we look at complex ones. So let's see. Our first illustration. So when we go to the material, we have first example. Good. A Japan Limited, right? That's the first example. Okay, there was some theory question there. Yeah, theory questions are good for your health. There's some theory questions there. Kindly try them. Okay, so a Japan Limited manufactures three products: A, B, and C. Data for the period just is as follows. Period just ended is as follows. Production units, so they are there. Sales price, they are also there. Material costs of them are also there. Labor hours per unit, they are also there. The labor is paid at the rate of 5 Ghana cedis per hour. Overhead costs for the period were as follows. Overheads. So the overhead costs were setup cost is there. Receiving is also there. Dispatch is also there. Machine. I don't know the total is giving us $190,000. So that means over there must be dollars. So we have cost driver data. Wow, cost driver data. Okay. Machine hours per unit, number of setups, number of deliveries, number of orders dispatched. They are there. Sorry for not reading the requirement first. Required. Calculate the cost and hence profit per unit, absorbing all overheads or all the overheads on basis of labor hours. So here when we see this, absorb all overheads. All the overheads are absorbed using one rate. That means they are doing what? Absorption, the traditional cost system. That is where all the overheads we absorb using one rate. B, calculate the cost and hence profit per unit. Absorbing the overheads using what? An activity-based costing approach. Thank God. So that is the game. So first, let's say we should calculate the cost and hence profit. Okay. Using the absorption. So let's go to the board and start working for this. So this is for an understanding purpose. So okay. First, I write here A, solution. Solution. A. I write on the board cost into brackets and profit per unit. Whatever they state, that's what I'll do. Profit per unit. Per unit. Good. I'll continue the game. How many products? 3, right? So product A, B, and then C. Then the reporting currency, okay, our dollar. Sort of series there. Okay. So I'm calculating cost. At the inception of this program, that's last 2 meetings, we said that anywhere the examiner asks to calculate cost, what are the items that will come to mind? There are 3 items anytime you are calculating cost: material, labor, and overheads. and then their breakdown, prime cost and overheads. Good. So you have to get our prime cost first. And prime cost is made up of what? One, direct material. Two, direct labor. Three, direct expense. So I'll just go to the question. The one that they are there, I'll just read them. I'm done. Anywhere you are finding for costs of something, you have to go through this process. So let's go to the question together and see if we can find the prime cost. So I can see material cost per unit there, 5, 10, 10, right? Okay, so let me pick that one. It's 5, 10, 10. So 5, 10, 10. When I proceed to the lower part too, I can also see labor hours per unit, right? 2 hours, 1 hour, 1 hour. And then it says labor is paid at the rate of what? 5 cedis per hour. So if I want the direct labor cost, then I'll multiply, right? So $5 by 2. So 5 by 2 by 1 by 1. And that will give us 10.55. So that will be 10.55. Good. Let's search through whether there is direct expense. Example of direct expense are royalties, license, those costs. Well, we don't have some here, so I think that is the end of the prime cost. So I just sum it up. I write here prime cost. 15, 15, 15. This is coincidence. So that is giving us 15, 15, 15. Okay, good. Good. Then we go to our overheads. Overheads. Now here, all the overheads are absorbed using one rate or one basis. So what we have to do is this. We have to get that basis or that rate correctly calculated. So let's calculate the rate. The rate will be like this. We call it overhead absorption rate. How to calculate it? It's always equals to total budgeted overhead over what? The total budgeted activity level. Total budgeted activity level. So the basis that we are using, we should go by this. Please, it is a working that we have to do. It's not part of the main solution. The workings that we have to do is somewhere. So if I should do substitution, what's the total overheads? They've sum it up for us. If not, we have to sum it for ourselves. They had 190,000, so we have to use 190,000. That's the total overhead. They sum it already, thank God. So I'll pick that one. So I'll tell the examiner that's 190,000 divided by. Now I left with the total budgeted activity level. Yeah, the activity level is what? The labor hours. They said we should use what? Labor hours. According to the requirement. All the overheads are absorbed on the basis of labor hours. So let's calculate the total labor hours. So let's go and look for the labor hours from the question. It's the labor hours per unit. We have 2, 1, and 1. If we are looking for the total, how do we get it? We want overall the total labor hours. So what we have to do is we don't need to sum just the 2 plus 1 plus 1, making 4. No, that's not the total. We want the hours spent in producing all the products above, all the products. So that means the hours spent to produce the 20,000 units of A will be the 2 hours by what? By 20,000. Then 1 hour by 25,000. Then 1 hour by what? 2,000. Agreed. That is how we do. Please and please again, anywhere you meet any cost driver, any basis that is a per unit or is per unit basis, if you're looking for the total, this is how you have to find. You have to multiply by the production. Okay, so let's do that calculation here. So labor hours will be A bracket, it will be 2 hours by what? 20,000. That should give us around 40,000 hours. B, 1 hour by 25,000 units. That should give us around 25,000. Then C is 1 hour again times 2,000 units. That should give us 2,000. So putting all this together, we have 40,000 plus 25,000, that's 65,000, plus 2,000, 67,000. So therefore, the total labor hours is what? 67,000. Let's go and then insert it in the formula. Okay. Now here will be $190,000 all over 67,000 hours. So what will be the final answer? Final answer. All these hours of workings. So this will give us each hour that we spend, then the cost is $2.84 per hour. So per labor hour. So 2.84 per labor hour. So that means each hour that we spend on the job, the overhead cost is what? 2.84. So let's come and absorb it. So have you seen that this overhead, we are just using one rate. One rate. So the time that you spend on it. Meanwhile, the overhead cost, this 190, is not only labor. We've added other stuffs to it. Good. So let's absorb it. Now, if you go to the question, to produce each unit of product A, how many hours do we need? We need 2 hours, right? Now, each hour is costing us $2.84. So what will be the overhead cost? So you just multiply the rate, the hours per unit, by the rate per unit or per hour. So it will be 2 hours by the 2.84 because here we say per hour. Good. So 2.84 times 2, and that will give us 5.68. So it'll be 5.68. Okay. And then, so absorbing this 1 hour by 2.84, that will give us 2.84. 2.84. So on that note, we are done. So I can take this session off. Going, in fact, gone. So at the end of the day, what will be the total production cost? So total cost per unit So this one give us 20.68, 17.84, and 17.84. The question asks us to prepare what? Cost and what? Profits. We should calculate cost and what? Profit. So it means that we have to bring the selling price. And we have to bring the selling price in here. Should I bring the selling price something like this? What is the selling price? So let's go and pick the selling price. It should be $20 throughout. So selling price 20, 20, 20, 20. Great. So therefore the selling price is 20, 20, and 20. So just bring the selling price in here, 20, 20, and 20. So at the end of the day, let's find the profit. So I write here profit. Like these two figures, I want to put one in brackets. Which one should I put in brackets? Selling price or the cost? Probably the cost, right? Probably the cost. The cost. So what will be the profit or loss? Profit or loss. So down here there will be a loss of 0.68 loss. Where there will be profit of 2.16. Another profit of 2.16. Good. So that is the end of the game. Great. So that is the end of the first section. Let's continue with the game. So that's of the activity-based costing, the B part. So here, take hold of everything. So B part. In fact, I don't need to clean most of the stuff. I'll bring them back. So right here B, still the same cost and profit per unit. By this I brackets ABC, activity-based costing. I want the examiner to be aware that I'm doing ABC. So I'll put A here, I'll put B here, I'll put C here. Not this ABC, the name of the product. Now, under the activity base and then the absorption, they are different, it's only one. The difference between ABC and the absorption, what we did first is the the overheads. The prime cost, there's no difference. So prime cost is still the same. The only difference have to do with what? The overheads. So it tells us that the prime cost that we had under the absorption is the same thing that we have to carry it here. Good. So the same prime cost. If you have calculated it already, you can just go straight forward and write prime cost here. And bring it 15, 15, 15. Or you can also give us how you arrive at the prime cost by stating the direct material and direct labor, adding them to get them. Good. Okay. So that is the game. Then we go to the overheads. My interest is with the overheads. My currency, they am reported in dollars. Good. Now you write here overheads. And do like this. And then you go to the question, you list all the overheads, the major activity. So let's go to the question and list all the overheads. All the overheads, here there are 4. Setup cost, receiving, dispatch, and machine. So setup costs, all right, here setup cost, receiving, dispatch, and machine. So these are the overhead costs. Then you pause and go and do your workings. I put those working in a nice table. So we have to go and calculate what you call the cost driver rate. And then we absorb the overheads. Good. And then we absorb the overheads. Good. So workings. So the calculation of the cost driver rate. I've placed them in a nice table. So the table starts like this. Right overheads here. What are the steps? From step 1 up to step 4. I've summarized them in a nice table. So step 1, identify the major activity. So that is the major overhead. So that's the step 1. Then the step 2, identify the cost or determine the cost driver. Step 2, the cost driver. But the cost driver is a step 2. I'll call it basis or just the cost driver. Just the cost driver. Then step 3, the cost pool or total costs. Cost pool. Over here, write number of drivers here. Then I'll put a cost driver rate here. And that is the end of the game. So anywhere you are doing ABC, don't let this table depart from you. Still, major overheads, record them. Setup first on the list. Receiving second. Dispatch and machine. Good. Now let's fill in what is the cost driver, the basis. Here we have to identify. So kindly identify them for me. If you pick each of the overhead or major activity, what is the cost driver? Each of the major activity. So if you go to the question, now some of them I'll list them down for you, especially setup. That one we use what you call number of setups or production run or number of badges. Great. That is what we will do. So in this particular question, for that of setup cost, we will use what? Number of what? Setups. So let's go and pick number of setups. All right, here number of setups. Number of setup. Then kindly determine the cost pool. So number of setup. What is the cost pool? The cost pool will be the total cost. So the setup cost given to us. So the setup cost given to us will be, that is a 90,000. setup here is 90. So 90 will be the cost pool. Left with the number of drivers, that's number of setups. What is the total setups over there? So if you sum the setups together, 10 plus 13 plus 2, that'll give us 25. Please and please again, over here, they didn't say setups per unit. If you check the first one, machine hour, they say machine hour per unit. Those that come with the word per unit, how you calculate the total is different. This one, they just said number of setups, you just add them. Good. If they should have said, oh, setup per unit, then I have to multiply to get the total. Okay, so 25. So I'll put the 25 here. I'll go to receiving. So receiving, among the list, which of them will be the appropriate? Number of deliveries received. So delivery received. What is the cost pool? 30,000, right? The cost pool is 30,000. What will be the number of drivers? So that will be 10, 10, 2. So 22. So 30,000 and 22. Let's go to dispatch. Dispatch. That's number of orders dispatched. Good. The cost pool is 15,000. Then the cost driver is 20, 20, 20. And that gave us 60. So 15,000 and 60. So number of orders dispatched. So orders is no shortcut to 15,060. Now the last person on the list, machine. Machine, you have to use what? Machine hours, which is 2. So what will be the total? That will be 6. Okay, they say per unit. So if it's per unit, you have to multiply by the production unit of 20,000 each, 25,000 and 2,000 before we sum them up. So let's do that computation. So 2 by 20, 40,000. We put it to one side. 2 hours over here by the 20,000, 40. The 2 hours over here by 25,000, 50. Then 2 hours by 2,000 there, making 4,000. So that would be 50,000 plus 40,000. So that's 90,000 plus 4,000. That is 94,000. Agreed.
The machine, are we not picking a 55?
The machine hours. So machine hours A, it will be 2 by 20,000 plus B, 2 by 25,000 plus C, 2 by 2,000. 40,000, 50,000, 4,000. If you sum them up, you'll get 94,000. Great. So if you sum this one up, you get 94,000. Any cost driver that they said per unit, please use this approach. Any of the cost driver they mentioned per unit. With that of the setup, we did not go through the same process because they didn't say per unit. It's a term. So putting all this together, you get 94,000. So machine is machine hours. Okay. So machine hours. Then The cost pool is 55,000. The number of drivers 94,000 hours. Okay, so that is it. Okay, so we are done with the step 1 up to step 2, up to step 3. Now this is step 4, cost driver rate. How do you find the cost driver rate? You divide. So the cost pool divided by the number of drivers. So 90,000 divided by 25. So that will give us 9 divided by 2.5, right? Okay, so that's 3,600, right? Perfect. So if I should write it in full, the currency must come $3,600 per setup. Per setup. And then 1,363.64. So 1,363.64 per delivery. Then we have 250, right? So it will be $250 per dispatch per order. Then finally we have 0.585 per hour. So 0.585 per hour. So this will be the first workings that we have to do. Good. So now when you are done, let's go and absorb them. So have you seen here, we did not put all the overhead costs together and just absorb them using one rate. No, line by line, activity by activity. Just that it's time consuming. Yourself now, if you realize that I have not even done. This is the second step. You have to go to the final step before you put the answer in. When I ask you for limitation or challenges, time consuming, complex, difficult. Consume time. Okay, let's absorb it. So I'll absorb the first one, and then you watch carefully how I absorb the first one, and based on that, you do the remaining ones. I'll step in again at the machine. Okay. So first, machine setup. We had a cost driver rate of $3,600. So if I want to absorb it, bring it in here, I'll ask myself, out of the 25 drivers, how many are there for product A? So I have to go and pick the number of setup for product A. So product A alone was what? 10, according to the question. The number of setups for product A is what? 10. So if I have conducted 10 setups before producing this 20,000 units, each setup to per our overhead analysis sheet, each setup costing us 3,600. So the step 5 is the overhead absorption costs. So the overhead cost. So if I should do the step 5 here, all these are workings. If I put A here and multiply 10 by 3,600, this will give us what? 36,000. This is step 5 total. This 36,000 represents the entire overhead cost for producing the 20,000 units. So the entire 20,000, they spent 10 setups, or they did 10 setups, and each setup is costing us 3,600. So overall, they're getting 36,000. But this calculation, is it per unit or totality? It's per unit. So we can't come and put the 36,000 here as the total setup cost. No, it's not happening. If I go to the B was 13,000. I'll do the same thing. So step 6 must be in. Step 6 said that calculate overhead cost per unit for each of the products. So the step 6 is per unit. So if they have produced 20,000, then the per unit will be what? 36,000 divided by what? 20,000. So that I've now converted this to per unit. So now watch the question carefully. Some of the question they will ask for total. That means you end at the step 5, they're asking for total. Some of the question they will ask for per unit. That means go further and divide it again by the 20,000 to get a per unit. How do you get it? So that is it. So that is what we do. So what will be the answer? 36,000 divided by 20,000. So that will give us something like 1.8, right? Good. So that's 1.8. Now, in short, we can just